Welcome to an all-new episode of the Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. This is Corey Richmond, joined by Jason Brooks. We have finally entered WrestleMania week. NXT has stand and delivered, unlike maybe WWE's major show, WrestleMania. Once again this year, two nights. Unfortunately, today at age 50, DMX unfortunately passed away. We'll talk about that later on in the show. AEW finally going to deliver Blood and Guts. We'll see how that goes, and a whole lot more. Jay, WrestleMania is finally here. How you doing on this Friday at the start, where we have SmackDown in a couple hours?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm good. It's been a busy week with work and other things. So, and 2 or 3 nights of wrestling. I didn't even watch Impact. I mean, I don't know if they were expecting anyone to watch that show yesterday, but yeah, a lot to talk about in wrestling, a lot going on.
Yeah, and they actually had an uptick apparently in ratings. So they didn't tell anybody they were moving to Thursday unless you were on Twitter. But apparently, I guess more people watch. But maybe we'll talk about that as time goes along. But Jay, we finally reached it. We'll talk about NXT and how good Walter, or if you're from overseas, Walter with an exclamation point, I don't know, versus Ciampa was, and the ladder match and everything else. But most average viewers tune in to see WrestleMania, and that's usually they're wrestling for the year for the average fan. It's on Peacock now. It's going to be the big experiment to see how many people will be annoyed the fact that they can't rewind, or if they're going to fix this by Saturday.
Well, you can on Apple products.
Oh, you can. Okay,
yes.
That's a good first step on fixing.
They said it'll be that'll be ready, but the other stuff they don't know about any other products.
And before we get too far into this, just want to let everybody know, they could always check us out on Twitter and Instagram at WorkShootPod. And me and Jason are always updating. Jay does a little bit more when it comes to the live tweeting. I do a little bit more during the week of just, random thoughts of things I see on there. But, feel free to join us and continue in the conversation. Also on the Facebook life group, where we are trying to be as active and growing that community, every day. But Jay, starting off, we start tonight with SmackDown. Do you think by adding the Andre Battle Royal and this four-way for the SmackDown titles, does this make you any more interested in seeing SmackDown, or is it just another show and if I'm home, I'll watch it for the average person or even yourself?
I think it's a fine gimmick. Doesn't make me any more interested. I think the SmackDown titles thing is interesting. I think they've actually done a nice job, really, with Chad Gable and Otis, the Alpha Academy being heels. I think they've actually done a pretty nice job with the tag team division on SmackDown, obviously, honestly, because some of their tag teams are pretty makeshift tag teams. So I think they've actually done a nice job. So I think that is kind of a hook for the show. The Battle Royal, I could literally care less about. Can we make it for a title shot or something? It's like, oh, you just get a big trophy in the end and no one even cares about. So
you may get pushed occasionally,
No, I mean, Cesaro won it and he ain't gonna put. I mean, these guys. So whatever, right? It's not a big deal. But so I think the tag titles, yeah, I think that could be a pretty good hook for the show.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it'll be see if Shinsuke actually does something. Does Ali finally get a push? I mean, there's a couple of decent sized names in it.
Does Ali get a push? I mean, he's not even again, he's not on the main card. I mean, I'm not worried about the Battle Royal means nothing. No one gets a push in the Battle Royal. I mean, that just doesn't happen. So the tag titles, let's see. The Battle Royal will be fun, and it'll be fun.
And I think it's like a nice little tease to help figure out maybe last minute possible buys for if you're watching on a Friday night and you're like, WrestleMania is Saturday. This is the final push. Get people maybe to go to Peacock and let them know for the 400th time. It's your last chance for 4 months for $9.99, which I think it's a good gimmick to get people to show up, even though just like every year you can sign up for, I guess, a 7-day free trial and get the show for free. But they're doing what they're doing. And I guess before we get into WrestleMania, and you've had Peacock longer than me, have you seen any major problems in the first 2 days, or did you have a smooth sailing watching the two shows?
No, Peacock sucks. I can't stand it. I've watched it I've had it forever because of I'm a big soccer fan.
Mm-hmm.
it slows down. They give you the circle of death. You got to restart. You got to come back in. People were complaining about it on Twitter last night at Work Shoot Pod. I was trying to live tweet pretty actively last night because normally I don't ever watch these shows live. You usually like watching some NXT, some. Now it'll actually be fun because you can watch each show live on its own and nothing's going to get. Corey likes to ruin shows for me sometimes. Now I don't have that. I don't have that, which will be good. But yeah, people were complaining about Peacock. It was the slowing down during the matches. It would completely stop. That happened to me once or twice. So the service sucks. They need to they need to improve it. I also don't like how the Peacocks, like how they do it. Like it's hard to figure out like where to find stuff. I don't think they do a really good job of like how to find stuff. And this is someone who's had Peacock and used it pretty much every week for like the last, let's see, when did the season start? In August, soccer started. So I've been on Peacock since August, like very regularly. And it just is not, it's not great. So, whatever, but it's free for me. So I guess I can't complain, but yeah, I think there's a good chance, Corey, that there's going to be some big complaints at WrestleMania. I mean, WWE has their whatever, $5 billion. So I don't think it'll matter much, but I do think they're never going to have had this many people streaming an event at one time. They already have issues with being slow. I'll give an example. ESPN. I mean, I rarely have problems with ESPN Plus or Paramount Plus as a service. So like, I don't know. We'll see. I think there's a chance though. There's going to be some issues with Peacock at WrestleMania for sure. I don't think they're prepared for the bandwidth that they're going to get, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So before we get into the show itself, this will be the second straight year that they're going to be doing 2 nights. Both have been because of the pandemic. So it'll be the first time there'll be live crowds. We'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that in a few moments. But Wrestle Kingdom has done its relatively successful for 2 straight years. We'll see what New Japan does as time goes along, if this is the new plan as well, or if once hopefully the world gets more back to normal, they'll go back to 1 night as well. But what's your feeling in regards to, do you want WrestleMania or big events to stay 2 nights, or is it too early to tell? I mean, how's your feeling in regards to the big shows being 2 nights? Because I mean, me personally, I kind of like the idea of having, making it a whole weekend, and 2, the idea of having 2 3.5-hour shows, not 1 8-hour marathon show.
Yeah, I agree. I like splitting it up. And I would like for them to do a little bit like what New Japan did, where 1 night kind of built on the other night. I think that would be fun. So yeah, and they could sell more tickets that way too, right? Do packages to buy both or whatever. So yeah, no, I would be, and then you could have 2 main events, 2 WrestleMania moments. So no, I don't really see any downside to it, to be honest with you. The only thing I think that would suck is, assuming things get back to quote unquote normal, these independent shows oftentimes have big shows on that Saturday before WrestleMania. NXT would always have their big show. I don't think they're going to be doing that for the future, but, so I think that would maybe hurt like these kind of smaller independent companies. And me, I'm all about like, not having a monopoly in this country. So, it kind of would be a bummer to see those independent companies, but maybe they could just do shows on Friday. I mean, I would say most people, if they're going to do a WrestleMania weekend, would maybe take Friday off and get in on Friday, and you can go to some independent shows Friday night, and then, if you do shows during the day, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how they would figure it out. But so other than hurting the independent companies, which I think it probably would, I think it'd be a good idea for the WWE to do.
And it helps the local community in regards to having a whole week thing. And I mean, GCW did the collective this year, where they just had the big thing last night with Josh Barnett versus John Moxley. They had their big match, which I think did pretty well for fan wise. I mean, GCW has,
I don't know about it helping the community.
Well, it brings.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with. I don't know if I agree
an all
with
week
that.
thing with.
But it already kind of is. Like, there's a Hall of Fame But people will show up. When people show up, they're not coming on Sunday. They'll usually come on Saturday and they'll go watch independent shows. So I don't know if I agree that it's helping the local community at all. I mean, having it be an extra night, I don't know that helps. I think people would come in on Saturday and maybe watch independent wrestling. So I don't know if I agree with that, but I do. I mean, I get what you're saying. I just don't think that it necessarily does. But that arguing that point's not important. I do think it would hurt independent wrestling for sure. But as a fan who I don't go to WrestleMania very often, or I've never gone to WrestleMania. I have partaken in like WrestleMania weekend, like we did a couple of years ago, which was fun. So like, I don't know. I don't. It is what it is. I think for the show and to get more guys on the show, I think it'd be helpful for the wrestlers. I think it'd be helpful to get more wrestlers on the show. It could help with storyline wise. It didn't this year for sure. So I don't know. I don't think there's many disadvantages from the WWE's end to do it.
I guess, Neil, and last thing on this before we move on, I guess, is though, if WrestleMania was one night again, I understand that we're not going to, it would mostly be an 8-hour show. And we'll get into this, more in a few minutes. But if you got like the best 7 matches, if this show was 7 matches over instead of 14 matches over 2 nights, I think we would most likely think this would be a much better WrestleMania if you just took the 7 best matches and you didn't have spreading this out over 2 days of 14 matches. So I mean, I know that's not an option.
Yeah, but I think the question though is, what are the best matches? Would Braun and Shane be on this? Maybe. I don't know. We don't. You say like they know what they're doing. I don't know that they know what the 7 best matches on the show are. So, I think they know that the 2 headliners and the women's match and Rhea and Asuka. But beyond that, who the hell knows what could be on this show? So, yeah, I mean I agree, but I mean, if you're saying like, you're not as pumped up for one night or the other, or like I kind of get that. Like one night might have Braun and Shane, and I won't care about that. So there could be a little bit of that element to it for sure.
So I guess gets right into our next subject. I know that these cards are bloated. It's 2 nights. There's, I believe it's, like I said, 14 matches. They may add something else on the second night. As from current reports, there will be no pre-show match, at least on night 1. Of these, 14 matches, are there any of these matches that you're truly looking forward to? I know that over the last couple of weeks, hype for this show, it feels like, maybe a 1 or 2 match, event. And, most WrestleManias are, 4 or 5 really great matches and everything else is kind of filler getting people on the card. But is there more than just, the triple threat match on night 2 that you're really looking forward to? Maybe that's kind of showing my hand a little bit here, but.
Yeah, no. So I'm looking over the card here on good old Wikipedia. I would say the Sasha match. I'm looking forward to seeing that because Bianca has had some decent matches. She's never had a great match, in my opinion. And I think she had a good match or 2 with, was it Asuka or was it Shayna? Yeah, one of her best matches was one of those NXT title matches with Shayna. But she's never had a great match. So I want to see, she's obviously capable of it, I think, in the ring and all that stuff. So I want to see if we get that from her, if they're able to tell that story. Obviously, Lashley and McIntyre, I think they had a really good match at the whatever Extreme Rules. I don't know, one of those pay-per-views earlier last year. So I think that would be a fun match. And then it's kind of a struggle here. So Cesaro and Shane. Seth, sorry. Oh, Shane. Oh, no, please no.
So are you interested in that? Sorry to interrupt you, but are you interested in that match because it's 2 great performers, or are you interested in that match because of the story they told? Because I mean, I think that'll be a great match.
The story. I think sometimes, again, I can't always rip WrestleMania booking storyline wise, because sometimes they're like, oh shit, we got to come up with a story. And I felt like that was, we want to push Cesaro, but we're not sure why. We're not sure how. I think the issue is more Seth Rollins' character. I think he should have come back with a different kind of character.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know that the story is to blame rather than, although Rollins' suits are ridiculous, but I think more so than, Rollins' character should have been different. He needs to evolve his character or be someone different. So that would be my only thing. But yeah, I mean, it should be a good match.
So 2 matches on night 1 and a match that should be a really good technical match, but hasn't been built great. Okay. So on night 2, you've got the
I mean, but how many of these matches do you get excited about? I mean, yeah. So okay, let's see. And of course, I'm reading this thing on Brian Alvarez saying that and Meltzer saying that O'Reilly and Cole underdelivered. Shockingly, they're saying something negative about NXT.
Wait, do you want to get to that now, or do you want to wait?
No. We can do that. We can do that later.
40 minutes of wait.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get to that later. I'm just saying everything negative is NXT. All right, so we've got Reigns, the world title match, triple threat match. Obviously, that's the match that I'm most looking forward to. Asuka and Rhea Ripley, if they give that time, that could be, I mean, the build's been whatever. They really rushed it. That match could be fantastic. Big E and Apollo Crews, that is an underrated match that I'm really looking forward to.
Are you looking for that because you like both guys, or the fact that
I think they've done I mean, if you want to go to what have been the best built stories / matches, it's the triple threat match.
Okay.
I guess if you want to go to Lashley, I think the build has been pretty meh. I mean, the Biggie Apollo, they've had a feud for like 4 months. And they've evolved the character. I mean, we talk about long-term stories, and we complain about that all the time. And NXT, I think, does a really good job with that. I think AEW even does a really good job with that for the most part, right? WWE does mostly a horrendous job with it. In terms of long-term stories, the best 2 stories they've told have been the triple threat story, which I think has been a WrestleMania-esque type of build, and then the Biggie Apollo Crews match. Those have been the 2 best built matches, and I don't even think it's close. I don't even think it's close. So
I kind of feel that's lost a little steam to the fact that he's lost 6 straight title matches.
Yeah, I agree, and I think they were like trying to figure out how to get it there. So I agree with you, but it's still at least been a long-term story, and I think he's going to win at WrestleMania.
I think you might be.
And I think that's why they were holding off. So I'm okay with that. And then Riddle and Sheamus, I think is going to be a hell of a match because those guys have really good chemistry in the ring. So yeah, there's some matches I'm looking forward to. Owens and Sami Zayn, I could care less about, which is kind of sad, I guess, in a way. But so I don't know. Some of these matches, I think both shows are going to be fun. And the one good thing about both shows is it's 7 matches. If there's no opening match, we know the shows are 3.5 hours long. So they should give these matches some time. So yeah, I think both shows should be solid.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. I mean, like I said, I'm looking forward to I think most of the same matches you are. I mean, I'm kind of interested in maybe the freak show aspect to see how good or bad Almas is. It's always interesting when a guy's first match, televised match, is at WrestleMania. I mean, you had a couple of years ago with Fandango's first televised match was against Chris Jericho, but he actually still did something within NXT. So you saw a little bit something here and this. You knew kind of who he was, but Almas is kind of an enigma, and it'll be from everything you read, he's picked up very fast. But it's going to be interesting to see how much he's going to be protected. Is AJ going to be in that match the whole entire time, or are they going to let this guy just run through? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they build this guy who, for the last couple of months, he's basically been the silent guy. And in the last week or so on TV, you've seen a little bit of his personality come out. I'm going to see if he could actually deliver in the ring. So I think that could be kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be, because they're going to protect him. They're going to make him look good in spots. So he's working with obviously very talented wrestlers. So yeah, that'll be interesting as well.
Now, we've spoken about for quite a long time, and it's been a subject of multiple podcasts of all different levels. Night 1, you've got two major matches. Most years, it would be the men would end the show, with WWE Championship match, Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley, forgetting about destroying the Hurt Business a week before the show. And then you also have the build may have started too early, so it's petered out a little bit. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks, first time two African-American female high-level stars facing each other. What should, in your opinion, what should close out the show? Because I mean, those are the only two options. You are not, as we're not ending with Bad Bunny, you know, even as big of a superstar he is musically, biggest, you know, superstar in the world, sales-wise. What do you end with?
Is he the biggest superstar in the world in sales wise?
Absolutely. He's multi-gram. Yeah, he's the biggest person out there, which I didn't know about. But I mean, that's been.
I wouldn't put him as the biggest. I mean, there's Beyonce, but and
Taylor
Taylor Swift, right? I mean, I don't know, but anyway, whatever.
What do you do? Do you go with?
I think you got to go with I think you have to go with Lashley and McIntyre.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, if they went with Sasha and Bianca, I think it'd be fine. And it'd be a great feel-good story. But to have that as the main event, I think it'd be a great story. But I think one cool thing that, we rip the WWE for a lot of things, and I certainly do. I've talked about this in the past, but their advancement of African American wrestlers, you have Lashes, although the Hurt Business they whatever, but you got Lashley as a champion.
Look back last week, guys, to Jason.
Yeah, exactly. You got Lashley as a champion. You have Bianca Belair against Sasha Banks, which is going to be, if not the main event, the co-main event. So they've done some tremendous things. You have, again, one of the best built matches of Big E against Apollo, and they haven't done the thing with Apollo where it's like this stereotypical horrible, African, whatever thing. I think it's actually been an interesting way. He's talking about like an African prince. He's talking about being a prince. And so I actually really like what they've done with that, although his accent is not great. But so I give them a lot of credit for that. Anyway, I digress. So, I think Lashley and McIntyre is the match. I mean, it's been the biggest story on Raw. Sasha and Belair have been a big story on SmackDown, but they haven't even been the biggest story on SmackDown. This isn't Ronda and Becky Lynch. I think it's gotta, and if it went last, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, but I don't. I think it should be the co-main event. I think it should be the second match to the top.
I disagree with you. I would go with Bianca and Sasha as the main event, and I would go with a hot start to the show. I would go with Drew versus Lashley as the opener. First time people are seeing, wrestling in a live setting in over a year, have a possibility of a title change. And going into our last topic, at least on our right now in regards to WrestleMania, the idea of a live crowd. If you're afraid that you might, boo or cheer, Lashley or, Drew McIntyre, because we don't know how these guys truly are being received, by the fans, best way to make sure that nobody gets booed. The first thing they see is a pretty hot match for the title. And, I don't think they're going to boo either one of them if that's the first thing you see. And I think, especially in my opinion, I think that Lashley's going to keep the title. I don't think you end the show with a heel on top. I mean, I know they've done that some years.
Yeah, I hate that ending the show with it's such a dumb narrative. The bad guy wins sometimes. Like, that's life. Like, look at our society and our country. The bad guy wins like a lot, like all the time.
But also, don't you want to reward your Royal Rumble winner and have her headline the show?
She's fighting for the title. Like, this isn't like she doesn't have. I mean, right? Like, she doesn't have to be. She's gonna be in the co-main event. She's gonna be the second match from the top. Like, that's a big deal. So, I don't know. I understand what you're saying, though. And again, I would be fine either way. I really would be. It would not matter to me either way. I'd say the only issue thing that I would struggle with is the idea that Bianca hasn't wrestled a great match yet. And the idea that there'd be a lot of pressure. And not that she couldn't handle the pressure or whatever, but it would be a long night for people. Even though it's, not 7 hours, it's still 3.5 hours. And you got to have a real kick-ass match to end that show. Remember years ago with that Reigns Undertaker match that was so horrible. It was like people were tired and then they had to watch this shitty match. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're gonna, so I I think that would be my only apprehension is that Bianca hasn't had that great match. So, of course, she's capable, but I think that's kind of a lot of pressure to put on her being in the main event. But, who knows?
All right. I can see your point there. I guess last thing on WrestleMania, at least on my end, and if you have
we got to do predictions. We got to predict who's going to win these matches.
Oh, you actually care? All right.
Yeah, we absolutely have to do predictions. What are you, nuts?
All right, fine. We'll do a couple of these matches. But all right, before we get to predictions, very quickly, and this has been a big subject on people because, like I said, people have not seen live wrestling, and we have no idea besides our own opinion on what's over and not. How do you think the crowd is going to react to a lot of the things that have gone over the past year? Are fans going to go and cheer this Randy Orton Fiend thing? Or are fans going to go and, cheer how, Braun Strowman has been portrayed as a moron? I mean, how do you think the fans are going to go and perceive Bobby Lashley and other people?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, it's 25,000 people in the stadium there, Tampa Stadium, Raymond James.
Basically what you had for the Super Bowl.
So a couple of things. One, you may not hear the fans that much, right? These open air arenas that they've done these WrestleManias that you barely hear the fans. So
did you feel you heard the fans at the Super Bowl? Same venue?
A little bit, but I mean, I didn't hear the fans like that. And the Super Bowl is different because it's I didn't hear the fans that much. A little bit. So, I don't know that you'll hear the fans much. I know Corey Graves kind of said something about he thinks the next megastar is going to be made out of this because there's fans there now. So someone's going to be made a star. I mean, I guess. I don't know how the fans. I think it depends. If it's fans who are going there who are just happy to be watching wrestling live and don't give a shit, I think there's a chance that it'll be mostly just positive. People will just be excited. I think if it's the marks who are going because they want to see, they want to see Lashley or Drew or Sasha or Bianca, and then they hate the rest of what's going on, then it could be interesting. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think it could go either way with all of these, but the one thing I do think is that the impact of the fans being there, I don't think it'll be felt that much. I really don't. I don't think you're going to hear them as much as a crowd. And then the other thing is okay, it's one night and then they're going to be in the Thunderdome for the next 2 months. So it's if it's only one night, who cares? So.
All right. So let's do this quickly and you tell me where we agree or disagree.
Sure.
I think Bobby Lashley keeps the title over Drew McIntyre. I think Bobby Lashley has kind of gone to his stride, and I know most pundits think that Drew deserves the moment he didn't get last year, and he carried the company for a good portion of it. But I think Bobby Lashley is hot right now, and I understand that and I think most people would agree they made a mistake on a whim that Vince woke up one morning and said Hurt Locker shouldn't be a thing anymore. But I think Bobby Lashley should keep the title, and I hope he does.
I agree.
Women's, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Women's championship for SmackDown. I think we crown Bianca Belair. I think even though this has not gone as smoothly, because I think they've had too long to build this, even though I like long builds for this one, I think they spiked too early. I think Bianca gets the title. And like I said, I think it ends the show with a happy ending.
I agree. I think Bianca wins as well.
Now, the only thing I'm going to ask on this, do you think I hope they don't do anything crazy because you don't want to ruin the moment of, two African-American great females in there, sticking in, someone like Becky Lynch or a Charlotte and I'm one I was going to say for sure, Bayley, who doesn't have a match, and Bayley feuded with both these women heavily for the whole entire year. Bayley doesn't have a match. We don't know what she's doing on the show. Could you see her getting involved somehow in this match in some way?
I don't think so. I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll go I think it'll be a clean win for Bianca. Maybe at the end of it, you could see that on SmackDown, Bianca comes out with the title, and then the first thing is Becky or Ronda come out, and we'll talk about that later. But I could see that happening, but I don't think they'll do that at WrestleMania. No. Okay. They haven't traditionally. So,
all right. So we've got Raw Tag Team title match, New Day versus AJ and Almas. I think the time of New Day is done, for at least for this reign. I don't think you do this whole entire thing.
They just won the titles like 3 weeks ago.
Well, I don't think you do AJ versus Amos and you do the title change if you could have heel versus heel with, the Hurt Locker. The
Hurt Business.
Hurt Business. It's a good movie. I think AJ and Amos win unless you're setting up AJ to put over Amos in a feud right afterwards, which that's a big ask for Amos to be in a singles match with AJ right afterwards. So I think they win the titles.
All right, I'll go with you there. I don't really care either way. I think, again, going back to the Hurt Business, why not keep them in, make it a triple threat match? Doesn't make any sense to me. New Day did not need to win the tag titles again. So yeah, let's go with AJ and Almas. We're on the same page here. I'm mostly agreeing with you.
A match that I think the average fan might care about because of who he is: Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus Miz and Morrison. This is not my line. This is actually someone else said this. Bad Bunny didn't even get pinned for the 24/7 title. I don't see him, taking a pin at WrestleMania. I'm just hoping that this is a showcase for Damian Priest. I think Bad Bunny and Damian Priest win the match. I think Damian Priest gets to do something pretty spectacular, maybe a big dive to put him on the map. And maybe
he's not going to get put on the map. He's not going to get put on the map in a basically a mixed tag match. But
I'm just saying he can showcase himself for some,
Yeah, I mean, he's on Raw every week. I mean, I don't know. But I think it'll be fine. I think Bad Bunny and Damian Priest absolutely win the match. No doubt about it. So, and the match will be just fine.
I mean, apparently Bad Bunny is, working every day at the Performance Center, but
no, God bless him. I mean, but pro wrestling's not easy. So, but I'm sure they'll put him, if they've been working on spots and stuff like that, I'm sure it'll be a well laid out match. So yeah, I think it'll be fine, but there's no way Bad Bunny and Damian Priest lose this match.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Now the match that could steal the first night, but has been built very badly: Cesaro versus Seth Rollins, two of your workhorses in the company. I could see this one going either way, but I think long-term Seth Rollins will be there to be, maybe a SummerSlam opponent for whoever wins night two's main event. So I think the push for Seth Rollins being a main event player again starts on Saturday. So I'm going with Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I think Cesaro wins. I think Seth
really?
Rollins could lose. Seth Rollins could lose the next 8 WrestleManias. He was talking, and he's been talking a lot about his accolades. He, of course, forgets to mention last year. And they really haven't mentioned last year, which I think is interesting too. So, no, I think Seth Rollins can. I think Cesaro wins. I think Seth Rollins doesn't need to win these matches anymore. And it's so interesting. Like, he's still really young. Like, I don't think people realize, like, he's only in his early 30s. Like, it's incredible the run that he's had. Him and Reigns and Moxley have had, because they're still pretty young guys. Yeah, I think Cesaro, because I think Cesaro wins this, I think Reigns retains the title, and I think you have maybe a Cesaro-Reigns feud at some point. One of those feuds where Cesaro's not going to win, but it's a way to put him over. Yeah, I think the Rollins feud has been a little, like, underwhelming. I don't think it's been bad, though. I think it's been underwhelming. Bad is what we've seen from Shane and Braun. So I wouldn't say bad. I would say underwhelming, which I think are two distinctly different things.
Yeah, I literally just went over the Braun Shane match and didn't even say it. I totally, just my eyes went right past it.
Yeah.
But,
so
I guess Braun Shane.
Yeah, I mean, Braun's gonna win. I mean, I can see, and I think you talk about the start of a push. That's probably what we're doing here. Probably the start of a Braun Lashley feud for the next few months.
Oh God, please no. All right.
Listen, tune in to Raw every week.
Well, we may have to talk about that later on the show on what that might be after WrestleMania, but that's what we call a tease. Tag team turmoil: Riot Squad, Lana, Naomi, Dana Brooke, Mandy Rose, Natalya, Tamina, and I believe that another tag team has been added to this: Carmella and
Bayley.
No, oh God, I wish Bayley was on the show, but she's still not. But the one who's handing out resumes every week.
Oh, oh my God, Billy Kay. Yeah,
Billy Kay. Honestly, I don't care who wins this. I mean, you would think it's Lana versus Naomi with a never-ending story.
I think Natalya. Well, I guess you have two. You would have to have a baby face, right? So And they've been building Lana and Naomi the whole time, so
I
I
mean, it
guess
should
you
be
would
the
say
Riot
them.
Squad
But
today.
they've really been putting over Natalia and Tamina a lot on SmackDown. They've been putting them over hard.
Yeah.
I think they should be the ones to go, but
I personally, I would go with the Riot Squad because I think they put on the best match with.
yeah,
on the
but they
second
haven't
night.
done it. They haven't done anything with it. They haven't done a lot with them.
True. I think we spent way too much time on this match, but that's just me.
All right, go ahead.
And it is what it is. So night 2, like I said, night 1 I think is a good show, not a great
Neither
show.
one, yeah, neither one of these shows are great, but night 2 I think is better.
Yes. All right.
Way
So
better,
night
way
2
better.
on Sunday, once again starting at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, which is an interesting thing where most WWE pay-per-views this year, or since the pandemic era, have been at 7 o'clock. But the show is at 8, which I think is kind of an interesting thing. So the main event, without question, I don't think we have to go and say where do we think, what do you think will be main eventing? Triple threat match for the Universal title. Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, and Edge. This has been going up and down for a while now. First, there was a one-on-one match. Then they decided to put Daniel Bryan in. Some people have said Daniel Bryan's in this match just so, Roman Reigns or Edge doesn't have to be pinned to keep their heat. Some people think, they go all the way with Daniel Bryan here. I think any of the three can win. I don't think it's a bad idea. Only problem I have with this, I don't think it's time to take the title off of Roman Reigns. I still think there's heat there. I'm gonna go with Roman Reigns. I think he's gonna keep the title, but I would not be shocked they go either of the two other ways. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I guess all the stuff we've been hearing about how long they want to have Reigns keep the title for. I can't. I mean, I can definitely see him losing, but I don't think he will. You still have Edge, who's kind of a part timer. You have Bryan, who's been more full time lately. But I don't think he's like, hey, I'm going to be out here wrestling every week. So, I think Reigns will win. And it's a good way, if you have Cesaro at some point, maybe you have Rollins turn babyface and go against Reigns. So yeah, and Reigns is he's the main event. So a well-built feud. I think it'll be a good match, and I expect Reigns to win.
And I think that should be, like I said, I think that will be the high point, and that will be super interesting to see. Like you said, you never know what you'll be able to hear or not hear when it comes to the audience, but it'll be really interesting to see Reigns now being the badass heel, and the first time the fans actually have a chance to go and really give him a reaction. And then Edge, who was supposed to come back as the conquering hero, they turned heel. How the fans, really react to these guys. We got Asuka versus Rhea Ripley for the Royal Women's title. We all know that if it wasn't for the false pregnancy test and also the COVID, this was going to be Asuka versus Charlotte again for the 400th time. I think Rhea Ripley wins because Asuka's been built so poorly since she's won the title. Jay, if you disagree, I think it should be a really good match on paper. But, if it wasn't these two women by name value, I really wouldn't care about this match, unfortunately.
Yeah, they've done a pretty piss poor job.
And Rhea's a heel now, Carol.
Rhea's a heel?
I mean, she basically beat the hell out of Asuka, every chance that she had in that tag team.
Yeah, but Asuka's been kind of again, just Raw just doesn't make any sense.
No.
They just don't make any sense. I think I agree with you. I think Rhea Ripley wins the match. I think it should be a good match. It should be fun. But to give, Ripley lost last year at WrestleMania in a very well built match.
Yeah.
And so I think, now is kind of her time. And, they've done bad enough with NXT people. So let's give her a shot here.
All right. And a match that I could not care less about. Hopefully it's quick. It won't be. Randy Orton versus The Fiend. I don't care. I'm going to go with The Fiend, I guess. I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't care. He got burned alive, so let's go Fiend. Next match.
Nigerian drum fight, which I'm guessing is a street fight with drum music, I guess. I don't know. IC title match, and that was not, and I wasn't trying to be, anything bad there, but I just have no idea what this really match is.
No, I don't know what it is. It sounds like a street fight.
Yeah. Big E versus Apollo Crews. Big E has won all 6 title defenses so far. At some point, you would think Apollo's got to win if you're going to do something with them. So I'm going to go with Apollo. But if he doesn't win, I don't know.
I think Apollo absolutely wins. I think that's why they've had Big E win all this time. I think they would have wanted to pull the trigger and have Apollo win at Fastlane, but that wouldn't have made sense for WrestleMania. So I think Apollo Crews absolutely wins the match. I'd say I'm most confident about Lashley, Apollo Crews. Lashley and Apollo Crews are probably the two wrestlers I'm most confident about winning their, I guess Strowman too, winning their matches. I think Apollo Crews definitely wins. But again, I could be wrong. Who knows?
All right, so Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn in a match that if you told me this match, most years I'd be like, oh my God, this should steal the show. But I'm just like, it was awfully rushed. And I think most people think that Kevin Owens wins because, whichever YouTube brother of the Logan Paul or with the other one, turns on Sammy and hits him, and that's how the match ends. Unless you differ, and we can move on to the next match.
Let's move on to that. I think it'll be fine. I guess the thing is, like, I don't think the result will matter for either one of these guys. Like, it's not good. Owens, Sami Zayn wasn't there last year, right? That's what he left before. Yeah, he left before, and then Owens won his big match against Rollins. So, I mean, maybe
did Daniel Bryan last year at Mania?
He did, and then he left.
Yeah, he left right after that.
Oh yes, right. He won the title and then he left. So they both had big matches at WrestleMania last year. They both had big wins. Doesn't really matter which guy wins. So we'll just go Sami Zayn.
There you go. All right, United States Championship match. Matt Riddle, who great wrestler but awful character, versus Sheamus, who's done actually I think the best work of his career with since he's left SmackDown. I think leaving the Jeff Hardy feud behind. I think he's been really good in ring. I think it's too soon to take the title off of Riddle, but Sheamus has been doing such good work. And the fact that they basically took away the main event of WrestleMania, which I think a lot of people thought that was the direction they were going before Lashley, like they decided to heat up Lashley. I think Sheamus wins the title.
Yeah, I think Riddle keeps the title. I think it's a little bit too soon to get the title off of him. So we're going with Riddle.
All right. Like I said, I could honestly see you being right on that one. In the last match, which I honestly couldn't care about, Nia Jax and Shayna versus the winner of Night 1 Turmoil match. My hope is the fact that, I didn't say this earlier, but somehow you have a mystery tag team of Charlotte and Bayley for some reason decide to team together, and they win it, and then they beat the living hell out of these two morons. And
Shayna's great.
Oh no, I love Shayna, but Nia Jax just.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Nia Jax gets released. So, I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. But no, on a serious note, yeah, I mean, I think, I'm gonna say whoever wins a tag team turmoil match wins,
really?
Because they've been kind of hinting at Nia and Shayna not getting along and stuff like that. So I think maybe they lose the match, and then you have a Shayna Nia actual feud with Reginald as a special guest referee or whatever at some point. So
that sounds so exciting.
Yeah, keep that on Raw, please, so I don't have to watch
very closely. So that is our WrestleMania preview. I think, like I said, on paper it seems like an average show. If it was one night of like the 7 best matches, I think we'd be a little bit more excited because there are a couple of matches on here that do seem very good on paper, and there's others that just feel like filler. But Jay, I always say this, on a scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you as an overall 2-night event for WrestleMania this year?
A 4 or a 5.
I'm going to say, about there. I'm going to say a 5. Jay, I guess last thing, do you see any big surprise returns, or there's been on Twitter, I know Io has said that, her dream was to face, Bayley at WrestleMania because she didn't have a match. Do we see we'll talk about it later on call-ups, but do you see Bayley actually wind up having a match? Do we have a ding-dong segment? I mean, what do you think? Do we see any surprises?
I know they've been hinting at some surprise at some point.
Becky Lynch, maybe Ronda.
Yeah, so I think we might get a surprise. I think we'll get one or maybe a surprise each night. Yeah, I think we'll get a surprise each night. Might not be a someone wrestling, but it might be like an appearance. Like, oh my gosh, this person's gonna be coming back at some point. Yeah, so I think we get a surprise each night.
And lastly, just let everybody know, after night one of the show, I will be joining Christopher Morin's podcast, Morin's Law, directly after the show to do a live take on it with Christopher Morin. And you can check out for his information in the description of the show. Every week we give you his info, so you can check me out giving a live take on the show, post-show with him on the More Laws podcast, where you can check, everywhere you listen to podcasts. But Jay, our favorite thing of the week is now moving to Tuesdays, which we discussed last week. But NXT Takeover had.
Well, your favorite show's AEW, so my favorite show's NXT. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, favorite night of the week. Well, now there'll be two favorite nights of the week, Tuesday and Wednesday. But NXT Stand and Deliver, I could say definitely night one, definitely delivered. Night two, I think the opening match delivered. Not sure about the rest of it.
Oh, I think it was a good show. What are we talking about here? Now, here's the problem with these takeovers is
night one was really.
Well, hold on. Here's the problem with these takeovers. We're comparing them to like all the other takeovers.
Sure.
If we're comparing this to like Revolution, I mean, come on. But we're comparing this to other takeovers, so sometimes they're these NXT is their own worst enemy in a way. Mm-hmm. I thought Takeover was a good show. I thought both nights were a good show. I thought night one was definitely way better than night two. But I thought both nights were good. I didn't think, oh my gosh, this wasn't a good show. This wasn't a good show. What are we talking about here? But the ladder match was probably the standout match for me. Probably a lot of people on Twitter, Corey, actually really loved the Karrion Kross match. I did not get that feeling from it personally. For me. And that's fine, but I'm also, I'm not a big fan of his anyway, so I'm maybe a little biased. That on Twitter, I did note that at Work Shoot Pod. I'm like, can he just go to the main roster so we can be done with this already? We know that's what we're doing here, but so I thought both shows were good. I didn't think, oh my gosh, what are you talking about?
Like I said, I thought night one was one of the better shows. Well, I think it's most likely top to bottom was most likely the best show of the year so far. I think night two was good. I don't think night two didn't blow me away. I mean, night one, I thought, Dunn and Kushida was excellent. I thought the gauntlet match wasn't great, but I thought
it was a fun, entertaining match. I mean, and we talked about, you've talked forever about Swerve and not getting a push. And I mean, he was in that match the whole time. I think he's gonna gain something coming out of that for sure.
I really hope you're right on that.
Yeah. I mean, he looked great in it. So I thought that match was good too. I thought every match was good.
On night one, yeah. I thought Walter versus Ciampa was excellent. I mean, yes. It is funny. I mean, I don't know if you watched night one on Peacock, but I thought maybe the best sequence in that match was actually during the commercial break. The people on the
see, my Peacock was messing up, so I actually went to USA. So
you did?
I was watching it, in commercial break. So
so they had this one sequence where Ciampa's trying to go and take Walter off his feet, and he's just going back and forth on the ropes and trying to hit him with these clotheslines, and you just it's a whole entire sequence of trying to get the giant off his feet. And he just keeps on rocking him over, and he finally gets him off. But that whole entire sequence was during the commercial break, and you're sitting going, "It's this great sequence, and finally getting." And then you're like, but all of a sudden, once it happens, you see, and we're back. You're like, "This is ridiculous," but it's awesome. MSK wins the tag team titles on the show. I think last week we both thought the Grizzled Young Veterans, at least I did.
I think that's I think that's a slight mistake. I really think they should have had the Grizzled Young Veterans win, because it's like, for them, it's like, where do you go from here? But maybe they're going back to the UK. I don't know, but I really feel like they should have won the titles. I think
we crowned Raquel Gonzalez as the new big star of the women's division.
Corey, you talk about telling a story. They told the story of this unbeatable giant and Io doing everything she can to beat her. I know you're the top dog here other than me. I want to challenge you. Then she spends the whole, the week before trying to beat her up. She can't beat her up. Then she spends the whole match doing these crazy dives all over the freaking arena, and she still can't beat her. And it put over Raquel Gonzalez as just a star. And it just told, and Io's already established. So, I mean, she's beating everybody. Court, that's, to me, like, that's pro wrestling. That's, if you ask, hey, Jason, what did you love about pro wrestling when you were a kid? And what do you love about it now? I love stories, and I love good storytelling. And I thought that match, that feud was just tremendous storytelling. I'm happy for Raquel Gonzalez. Good for her. I know there are people saying, oh, she's not great. I'm like, I don't know what you're watching. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what she does as champion for sure. Because, she's going to have to wrestle these kind of quality matches all the time. There's a different standard set for NXT women's champions. This isn't like, you can have the title and have some, bullshit matches. Like, you got to be good every takeover. So let's see how she does.
So, like I said, we quickly went over night one, but I just want to get some of your general thoughts on night one before we get to night two. Like I said, I thought night one was really good. I truly enjoyed the Walter match. I enjoyed the women's title match. What were your standout moments from night one?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like we kind of, we've kind of already went over it. I thought the women's title match was great. I thought Grizzled Young Veteran should have won. Yeah, so I mean those are pretty much my kind of deeper thoughts. I'm trying to think of everything because was saying so much stuff on Twitter. I'd have to think back, but yeah, no. So I thought it was a really, really good show. That I enjoyed.
Yeah. Night two, I thought, like I said, I don't think it was by any stretch a bad show, and that's not what I'm trying to say here. I just think night one was such at a high level that at a hard bar to meet. Santos Escobar beat Jordan Devlin to unify the titles. Thought that was the best match on the show. Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart defeated Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. I thought that was the weakest of the matches of the two nights.
Yeah, and I think the problem with that match is you compare that match with Sasha and Ember to the matches they had with Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai, both matches, and they were fantastic. And this match left, Indy Hartwell is she's still developing, right? Like, she's obviously got the physique and she's got, she's, whatever, but she's still learning. She's not there yet. So, this was kind of a basic tag match. It was nothing crazy. So, yeah, I thought that match was fine. I thought the ladder match was a lot of fun and interesting. And I wasn't sure what they would do. I mean, with the fact that Escobar won, you think that that Devlin's going to go back to the UK. I'd love for Devlin to stay there for a little bit, but because they do have a lot of talent in NXT UK. So, we'll see if he does stay and challenges for the title again and maybe wins it and Escobar goes to heavyweight. I really want Escobar to go to heavyweight. I think, there's not enough challenges really for him to go against to make him look good. So, we'll see what happens there in the future with Escobar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only thing, and I said this in our Facebook group, I think it was a little, and I know you want to have the big moments, but if you're a heel, bringing your kid out at the end of when you win the title is like a super babyface thing to do, and you kind of want to cheer a guy when he brings out his kid. It was just a little weird, but small gripe. But then you had Johnny Gargano versus Bronson Reed, which I thought was a really good match. I don't think it ever reached the level of great. I think Bronson Reed showed he can be a really good medium-sized guy on the main roster, but he should stay in NXT because his size on NXT works, but I think he's just another bigger dude who's not big enough on the WWE main stage. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Corey, at this point, I don't know who would be successful on the main roster and who doesn't. I'll be honest with you. We said Aleister Black would be successful. Andrade with the manager would be successful. I don't know who's going to be successful and who's not. I have absolutely no idea. We knew Drew McIntyre would be, but even he had a shitty run for a while there. Me predicting who's going to be successful in the main roster, I couldn't even tell you. I certainly don't think that person would be Bronson Reed.
Mhm.
Who knows? But I think he's fine to stay in NXT for a while.
Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross for the NXT title. I thought was good. I don't think it, like, once again, I don't think it ever reached great. And this is kind of the theme I have, why I think that night 2 was a good show, not a great show. And I understand, Jay, you slightly disagree with me, but I think Finn Balor, and I have no problem with Finn Balor losing the title, because I think if Finn Balor's staying there, you can set up the idea of the Demon facing Karrion Kross. He's got to go to that next level, maybe get the title back. I think Kross looked very good as like the unstoppable machine, but I think, it's a little weird. You have Kross and Walter, kind of similar characters of, just a killing machine. So it's gonna be interesting if they go that route, or if they go with Balor versus Walter, something they were gonna do last year's WrestleMania Takeover events. I enjoyed that match quite a bit. Thoughts on?
Yeah, I thought it was a good match. Definitely Karrion Kross's best match today. I mean, he is on a Goldberg like streak. He hasn't lost. He hasn't lost a singles match at all. Again, I think the star of the two is Scarlett, to be honest. But yeah, I thought it was a good match. And now that he's the champ, we'll see if he can deliver night in and night out, because Balor as champion has done the best work. I don't want to say of his career, because I didn't watch him a lot in New Japan. But he's done the best work of his, WWE NXT run by far. Like he's had great matches. So we'll see what's next. I'm sure they'll do a rematch of some kind. And we'll see where it goes.
It's gonna be interesting what they do with Finn Balor, because Finn Balor was initially only supposed to be with NXT for a couple of months. Was supposed to go back into the main roster. He's wound up.
I think they need him though there. They need him there to continue to help develop other guys and make other guys. He, we talked about it with AEW, right? AEW didn't beat NXT because it was a better show. I truly feel that way. AEW beat NXT because they had Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Sting, the Young Bucks, Omega. I mean, they had stars. And NXT just doesn't have that. They don't have that level of star. Other than Balor. He's the only guy. And maybe you can make a case for, Adam Cole and EO. But that's kind of it. So I think for star power wise, I think Balor should stay there. And what's he going to go do on Raw? Lose to Braun Strowman? I mean, what's he going to do on there? So, I'm sure he's praying he doesn't have to go back to Raw. So, because these guys all watch that show, right? They know what's going on. And he's getting paid like he's a main roster guy anyway. So I'm sure he's like, just fine, just keep me on here. So hopefully he stays on the on NXT, because I think they need him. I think they need his star power.
Okay, so now our final match, 40 minutes and 22 seconds. This match should have been 25 minutes long. Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly, unsanctioned match. I'm not saying it was a bad match. It's just was way too long for me, and the length of the match didn't work for me. I mean, and as a result, this felt like it should have been. These guys should not face each other again for another year. You have this 40-minute match. You have this super long match, and it just, maybe this worked for you, and I know that I think you said Dave Meltzer kind of killed this match, but Dave Meltzer gave this match 4.5 stars. So I mean, he still thought it was a really good match, but I thought this match was a disappointment for me personally.
Couple of things. One, it definitely was too long.
Okay, we agree on at least one.
Definitely too long. I think it was like 8 minutes too long. Like 25 minutes. It didn't have to be 25 minutes. It could have been 30 minutes. I think would have been a perfect length.
All right, 30. All right.
2, it's hard for me because I watched their match in Ring of Honor when they broke up as Future Shock. Mm-hmm. And that may have been between the two of them, their best match of their careers.
Okay.
So then I'm also comparing them to that match, which this was not as good. They were younger. They took a lot of chances. They took a lot of kind of dangerous, reckless chances. And then 3, and as much as AEW wants to have blood on every show, I think there should have been blood in this match. I think this is a match there should have been blood. And so I think when you combine all those factors, I think it was a good match for sure. The right guy went over. I'm so glad Kyle O'Reilly won. But I think because now you establish another guy, right? Adam Cole could lose until the cows come home in NXT. But was the match great? I wouldn't say it was great. I'd say it was very good. So, and that's okay. These hardcore matches aren't always great. Very few of them are great. Very few of them are great. I mean, we give the Thunder Rosa Britt Baker feud a lot of credit, and it was a very, very good match. But like, I'd say it was. I guess I'll say it was but it was also 15 minutes long. It was a good length. So I think it was a little long. They did a little bit too much with the bringing out different weapons and things like that. And there should have been blood in it. And I was comparing this match to their match years ago. So, it's tough for me. My whole thing with Meltzer and Alvarez is that they're always negative on the WWE, specifically NXT. They can be negative on the main roster, but they could tend to be negative on NXT at the behest of Tony Khan. So anyway, thought it was a good match, not a great match. I thought night 2 was a good show, not a great show.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I said, I think this was a great weekend for NXT. It's going to be interesting what they do going forward, moving on to Tuesdays. And I guess the reason why I think that this could be the end, possibly for Finn Balor, is because they're no longer in this quote-unquote war and having to go and get huge ratings on Tuesdays. So, I mean, leading into our next subject, quickly, possible NXT call-ups. What else does like an Io Shirai, an Adam Cole, or Finn Balor really need to do in NXT? And before you answer that, just think about this. They're not going on the road at least for another 3 or 4 months. So everyone's in Florida. If it doesn't work out, or a Ciampa who says he never wants to leave NXT basically because his family's there, you could have Ciampa or some of these guys.
Well, he also watches Raw every week. Go ahead.
He can get that huge payday versus Orton in the
I think for him, I think he's a different kind of guy. I don't think he gives a shit about that.
Oh no, I understand, but I'm just saying is everyone's in Florida. It's not like you're traveling anywhere, and if these things don't work out, and if Adam Cole isn't getting over, you can put him right back in NXT. You can do one thing and be the biggest guy there again. What do we think about this? Could we see a Balor, an Io, and Adam Cole, your biggest stars? Could they show up either on SmackDown or Raw the next couple of weeks? And I know how much we hate the idea of seeing our favorite stars get, booked by Vince McMahon.
Get buried. But, let's call it what it is. I think if Io goes to SmackDown, she's got a chance. I do. I'm starting to trust SmackDown a little bit more, and I think maybe Daniel Bryan is an influence there. I don't know. Well, because it seems like isn't Michael Hayes still the guy there and stuff? I don't know. So I trust if Io goes there that she'll have a chance. I don't think they could lose all 3. I feel like that would be. I mean, we named their 3 stars, and those are the 3 people. So I don't think they could lose all 3. So maybe Io, okay. And then maybe Adam Cole or Balor. Okay.
What does Balor have to? Maybe Balor there, you said, to help the young guys, but what is Adam Cole after losing the way he did in the Big Blood feud? Unless you're telling me he's now going to put over Roddy. What else does he really have left to do? He's put over.
I agree. We
pretty much every major guy.
I agree. There's nothing left for him to do. There isn't. He's the longest reigning NXT champ of all time. So he's had the title. He's been in a million Takeover main events. He's one of the greatest NXT He's on the Mount Rushmore of NXT performers. So he goes to he goes to Raw, and then it's the countdown till when he goes to AEW. That's what it is. So yeah, for him financially and stuff like that, I hope, whatever. But he's a guy, and I was thinking about this watching him. He's a guy that Corey, I've watched him for like 10 years
or more. Yeah.
It's insane. So I'm heavily invested in him. I've liked him for a really, he's been my guy for a really long time. And I think if he goes to the main roster, it's fine. But I think when he goes to the main roster, it's going to be a countdown to the end of his contract and to when he's going to AEW, because there's very unlikely, it is very unlikely they give him any kind of legitimate push. But if he goes, we'll talk about it more then.
All right, and the very last thing with NXT, we saw the promos over the last week and a half. We saw the adorable dog. We have the debut on Tuesday of Taya Valkyrie, now being known as Frankie, apparently. What do you think of her joining? Do you think she could be the next contender for Raquel? Do we see a slow?
Oh yeah, I think we talked about that a few weeks ago. Absolutely. Yeah, they're building her up. She's gonna be one of them, and that's how you can see EO leaving, right? You one leaves and one comes in. So yeah, I definitely expect her to have a instant impact.
I agree. And like I said, I think we have a bright future for Tuesdays with NXT. There'll be less pressure on them to have to bring in the ratings, and it's going to be the true test to see, one, if, how much wrestling fans are going to want to watch wrestling every night, and if we get back to basic booking of what this company was when they weren't bothered by having to get ratings when they were on the WWE Network. Because WWE Network, NXT, and NXT USA Network are two different type products. And I think we saw a little bit of WWE Network era NXT over the last two nights. And it gave me
I don't know about any of that stuff. I mean, the takeovers were still great. They made some booking. They hot-shotted some things, but I still think it was NXT. And I still think many of the shows were great. And I still think on a weekly basis, the shows were better than AEW. So I don't know about any of that. Like, they're going to do their stuff. They're going to do their stuff. And it's going to be what it's going to be. And that's one of the reasons why they lost, quote unquote lost. You know what I mean? Who did AEW had? Shaq, Mike Tyson, Snoop Dogg. NXT didn't do any of that. They had Charlotte for a little bit. They didn't do any of that. They hot shotted a couple angles, right? Like, they didn't, this whole idea is like, oh, it was so different since they were in USA. Like, it wasn't really that different. They basically did their stuff, and they're going to do the same thing they do on Tuesdays. The booking is very, and you could say that that's good or that's bad, but they have a formula, and I love it, and it seems to work, and I think they'll do great on Tuesdays.
All right, well, speaking of what you just mentioned, AEW, quickly, a couple of quick thoughts. We found out that Blood and Guts is happening on May 5th. Initially, it was going to be happening in New Jersey on their big debut in the New York area.
Corey, first of all, one, I don't really care. Two, what's Blood and Guts? What is that? It's a hardcore match? Is that what it is?
War Games match. Double cage War Games.
No, well, all right, fine.
I was excited. I was going to see it live, but, maybe they'll do something special if they actually come in September, because that's when it's been rescheduled for the second time. But, let's cross our fingers here. But we have the Inner Circle are now baby faces now. I'd love to get your point of view, and we're going to go a little fast here, but your thoughts on the Jericho promo. Did you think it was the world's best thing, what some people are saying? Did you thought it was too inside? Did you think it was just right? It wasn't the pipe bomb, which, people were saying,
the pipe bomb.
People thought Jericho was like,
what are people talking about? The pipe bomb? CM Punk called out the entire company to their face. There's never been a promo done like that in wrestling history. Oh my God!
They all knew what he was going to say.
I know they knew he was going to do it, but the shit that he said was just, wait. Oh, these AEW marks are going to drive me nuts. All right. It was a good promo. It was a great promo. It was a great promo. But, he's Chris Jericho. He's one of the greatest wrestlers, promo guys in the history of professional wrestling. So that didn't surprise me. It was a good it was a great promo. You know, I don't know what else there is to say.
Do you like the idea that the Inner Circle are now baby faces, or do you think that was?
Yeah, I think I think it's the evolution. Sure, Jericho would come out and everyone would be singing the song the whole time. Jericho would have to say something negative about the fans, and the fans kind of, you know, they picked up on it, so they would boo, but nobody wanted to boo. Nobody wanted to boo them. So even Santana and Ortiz, they seem like great guys. They have a great story. Ortiz is like a total goofball. Sammy Guevara seems like a dick, but and Jake Hager seems like a heel too. But I mean, the other three guys, whatever. So yeah, I mean, the natural I mean, he's one of the biggest stars in history of wrestling. He's been around for 30 years. Like nobody wants to boo him. So yeah, absolutely natural progression that they're baby faces. It makes a lot of sense.
Very cool. That makes
and
sense.
You need a babyface feud with all these heel stables now, but
yeah, I thought it was done well. I thought the Tyson thing was done fairly well. I mean,
I thought the Tyson thing was fine. Who cares? I thought it was fine. I continue to, more than anything, I continue to be impressed with how good a shape he's in at his age. Beyond that, I don't care.
I mean, I think it just set up the idea that I think they use celebrities well. I mean, the Snoop Dogg one wasn't great, but I think the way they've used celebrities integration, I think, is, you know, pretty well done. I guess that's just what I would say on that. Other thing that to speak on is the Young Bucks once again have turned heel apparently, or they were goaded into turning heel by Moxley being frustrated they didn't want to super kick their best friend's head off. What was your thoughts on that whole entire situation? Do you think the slow build is working for you, or is it too slow of a build of, you know, for the average fan who just wants to see, you know, progression?
So we're building to them being heels again. So that's what we've been building to. And they were the champions of the company. So they've shown enough killer instinct already. I don't know. I think one, it was too soon. I think you had, Corey, how much shit did they have on this show? They had Archer out there with Sting. They had Mike Tyson coming out. You had Jericho with this promo. They're talking about blood and guts. Like, how much stuff can you have on these shows? It starts to kind of lose its effect after a while. I just thought it was too soon. You know, say this match is going to be 3 weeks from now. Why is it? Oh, next week we're having a match now. And then, oh, they're going to turn on them. And everybody knew they were going to turn on them. I thought it was fine. But, like, here's the thing. AEW was started because of Omega and the Bucks, right? That's we pretty much know that. Khan went to the New Japan show and he saw Jericho and Omega and he watched being the elite and he was a big mark, and so he's like, we got to do this show. The Bullet Club, the Elite, this is like the biggest thing that they have. As much as they have Jericho and Moxley, this is kind of the biggest thing that they have. Don't you want to draw this out a little bit more? And now, you know, they have Gallows and Anderson too. Don't you want to draw this out a little bit more? Now, obviously, there's a good chance they have the Bucks turn back and whatever, and then they go against Gallows and Anderson. I think eventually that's where they go with this. I just thought they're doing this slow build, and then it's like, oh, they're turning. Now, again, AEW does do things where sometimes the story ends up being pretty good. So I'm not going to totally bury them and say they're the worst thing since sliced bread, but
They're the worst thing since Raw.
this isn't Strowman and Shane, but I will say that it's such a centerpiece for the company that I think they just have to be careful with what they do, and I hope that there's more of a story to tell here. I think there is, which is why I'm going to hold off from going too nuts, but I don't like the beginning. Let's put it that way. I've started the book, I've started the show, and I don't like the beginning, but I'm gonna watch it anyway because I'm invested in the story. So let's see where it goes.
I agree. Like I said, I'm interested to see where they go. I think there's a problem with AEW with some of their storytelling, but overall I think it's interesting. where they're going with this. It'll be interesting to see where they go in the next couple of weeks. But last thing on AEW, future weeks we'll talk more about AEW. But this was a WWE heavy show. Somebody put up this week 72 people on a 2-hour show for AEW. Now I know some of it, people are breaking up, fights and different things, but you have a 2-hour show, 72 people. That's way too many people. I understand that, Tony Khan has done a great thing by helping independent wrestlers, get work during a pandemic. He hasn't fired anybody unless they've done something stupid or they just are a bad apple, aka did something stupid with, the speaking out movement and other things in that regard. But 72 people on a 2-hour show is just way too many people. I know that they're going to get a third hour on a separate night, some point coming up soon, but that's just too many people. And they've got to figure out a way to fix this, and I think
Corey, we have been complaining about this for months. They're not going to fix it. This is what they do. It's like Raw. And this is a conversation that I want to get into, not now, but eventually, about Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard and whatever. What we're seeing with AEW, just like what we see with NXT, they have a formula. AEW's formula is we're just going to throw a bunch of shit out there. That's what we do. That's what we are. Good, bad, or indifferent. Like us, don't like us. This is what we do. Like Mark Henry would say with this shirt, that's what I do. This is what they do, like it or not. And we either have to at some point start accepting it or whatever. I mean, I'm still going to complain about it every week, but because I'm a curmudgeon. And I think the show could be great. And I think it's just good. And so, yeah, I mean, and I think, Corey, the problem is they spend so much time doing, and here, I'm going to tell you one criticism, an actual criticism, and I was thinking about this.
Okay.
Beyond the 72 wrestlers. So they're building this Jade and Velvet Sky match. Now, with Sasha and Bianca, it's 2 African-American women who are going against each other, who I know they had Reginald in there, and that was stupid and whatever. But for the most part, these are 2 women who have respected each other and so on and so forth. And this is not a big deal for other people. Most people, especially white people, are like, oh, who cares? Who cares? Okay. But with this Jade and Velvet feud, you got 2 women calling each other bitches the whole time, saying I'm a bitch, you're a bitch, and 2 African-American women who are just calling each other bitch the whole time. I just think it's gross. I think that lead up to this lead up to their match has been that video package they had was gross. And it's like, can we do anything other than call another woman the B word? Aren't we past this in our society where you have a problem with someone, you have a problem with someone. Okay. But you're not constantly calling them a bitch the whole time. I think that promo, Jade and Velvet said it like 5 times each. I thought it was gross, and I don't know, WWE, AEW doesn't have a lot of women who are in higher positions. They have Brandy Rhodes, who's, she's not a good wrestler. So they don't have, I don't know that they have many veteran women's wrestlers who have been there and seen it and done that, and can help tell women's stories. You hear, the bunny or whatever. Oh, the bunny, she's crazy, a crazy woman. She's a Jezebel. It's like that same thing. And I think if they want to ever advance women in their company, they took a big step with Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa. They've got to stop doing this thing where they are calling women bitches and crazy, and that's all women are. They're athletes, they're performers. Jade can hate Velvet Sky for other reasons than she's a bitch. So that's
Red
my
Velvet?
Red Velvet Sky. Oh my
Straight
God.
out your mama.
Velvet Sky, Red Velvet. She can say other things about Red Velvet, rather than calling her the B word. So let's advance a little bit past that. So that's just a thing that
Totally agree with that. Thought there were a lot of other things on AEW that were good and bad from this past week.
Yeah.
We'll get into that more, on Twitter @WorkShootPod, and on Instagram, of course. But Jay, let people know how they can follow us as you do each week.
Yeah, sure. So we're on Twitter @WorkShootPod. I was able to live tweet because I watched shows live. I didn't have to immediately watch another show because Corey was going to ruin it for me. So now that NXT is NXT is Tuesdays and AEW is Wednesdays, I probably will live tweet more often because I'll probably just watch them live. They do a good job with commercials and stuff where it's not like I have to watch it after. So I'll probably watch most of the shows live. And when I do, I will try to live tweet it at Work Shoot Pod. We are also on Instagram at Work Shoot Pod. The great Jackie Endy really tracks that for us. Thank God, because I don't know anything about Instagram. So yeah. So that's that. And then we are on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Just look us up, Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. And if there's anything that you guys would want to see or hear or listen to, if you want to hear more Raw talk, we'll go through it. If you want us to do more about, and NWA or more about Impact or whatever, let us know. Okay. So tweet us at Work Shoot Pod. We have a Facebook group as well, Work Shoot Pod Wrestling Podcast. So check us out. And last thing, we're a part of the great Life Group series of podcasts. We are part of the Wrestling Life Group. And Monday is Dong City. So that's a baseball podcast with Henry and Vince. Tuesday, we've got the Audible with Matt and Randy. A lot going on with football. Deshaun Watson seems to love him / therapist. Thursday, you've got us, Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. Friday, you've got the Step Back basketball podcast with Jacob and Leon. Basically, teams have just decided to end their season before the 20 games before the season's over. Great for betting. And then Sundays, you've got Total Bases with Felipe and Sean, more of a fantasy baseball podcast. So check all of them out. Very entertaining, very good guys, and good listens.
Oh, and of course, speaking of Jacob Anthony Moses from the Step Back and many others today had joined us in our chat. Unfortunately, everything going on, we didn't get a chance to bring up many of their comments, but thank you guys for joining us, and definitely check out them and everyone else on the network. Jay, there is one other podcast that we have been part of, apparently. Do you remember what that's called?
You don't know Jackie Endy, Jackie Rachel, Jackie Corey, the comedy podcast for the ages.
I don't know who this Jackie Corey is, but but we right now we're going bi-weekly because of scheduling, and I'm having a little bit harder to get some of these episodes done. But
Corey's got so much social media to post that he doesn't have enough time.
That is very true. WrestleMania week is kind of taking a little bit of my time this week, but yeah, we bi-weekly right now. We'll have a new episode next week, and looking to get Jason back on the podcast very soon to talk about more of my problems.
Will I ever be on the show, folks? It's been 8 months.
Wow, I guess somebody's been counting. But Jason, we will talk more about that and other stuff. But last two topics on the day, one on a positive, and unfortunately one on a little bit of a negative note. We'll take care of the positive one first. Will Ospreay, the first British-born heavyweight champion in New Japan, winning the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship from Ibushi. We were both a little bit upset that the Empire did not start off on the greatest foot. I mean, we both still have no idea why the Great Khan has a job, but Jay,
let's not go that far. I just don't know why he's got the push that he does. He should be employed.
Maybe. But we both had a chance to see the match. I think it was either at the level or better than anything from TakeOver. I think the only thing that was close was Walter versus Ciampa, but I think that was a little bit better. I mean, if you wanted to say that Walter Ciampa was, 4.5 to 4 3/4 stars on, the Dave scale, I would say this was, 4.8, just slightly better. I think, this is end of the year. I think this will be one of the best matches of the year. I think this is the start of the push for the Empire, and they set up matches going forward with Shingo, Okada, most likely a rematch with Ibushi coming to the line. So I think after a year of not sure what the heck was going on with booking with New Japan, I think they kind of at least have a short-term direction of challenges for Ospreay and seeing where they might go.
Yeah, they have a lot of stories to tell. I know Ospreay has been in the speaking out movement, and his girlfriend, I think, might be going to NXT UK possibly.
Bea Priestley, yeah, she did her last show with us.
Yeah, Bea Priestley, so she might be going there. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, I know that, some people have a problem with Ospreay because of that. I don't know all the details, but um, I just know he's a tremendous performer, man. Um, I saw AJ Styles when he was, how old was he? We have a couple year age difference. So I was 19 or 20. And so he was like 22, 23 at an NWA Wild Side. And I was like, I've never seen a guy like this, like in my life. I've never seen a guy as a performer like this. He was like Shawn Michaels, like like another kind of Shawn Michaels. And I think Ospreay it elevates that. And I think the fact that Ospreay now is doing more with his ground game, so he's not high flying as much, which he needs to do to keep protect his body. I think it's bringing elements to his game that he didn't even have before. So, I think he's an AJ Styles, Kenny Omega style performer. I think he's one of the top 10 wrestlers in the world, maybe even top 5. And I think he's the type of guy that when he decides to go to the US, he's going to be a giant star, particularly if he goes to AEW. We know how, and we'll see if where Vince is at, with his stuff. And because I think Triple H would get him and would push him to the moon. Let's say Triple H is running a company, if that's the case.
Hey, Ricochet versus him again in NXT.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Will Ospreay will go to NXT.
Yeah.
So I think he really is developing a character. He's talking more. And it was a great match against Bushi. Definitely the best match of the week. Absolutely. And I am looking forward to seeing where they're going. I'm definitely more, I was a little out on New Japan. I have a lot of stuff going on. But now I'm definitely going to deep dive a little bit more. I'm so glad Shingo's getting this big push too, because that dude is a freaking stud, man. He's so good. And so yeah, it's going to be interesting with Ospreay. They already made 2 challengers out there, great booking, and I'm excited to see where they go the next couple of months.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see where everything goes there. We'll follow it the coming weeks as New Japan continues with their shows, and we'll let you know what you should be watching. But Jay, last topic of the day, unfortunately, it's a sad situation. 50 years old, one of the top 5, at least East Coast, New York-based rappers in my lifetime. DMX died earlier today at age 50. I'll be honest, right now, I'm not a huge rap fan, but in the early 90s to the maybe early 2000s, I was a fan of rap. Him, Nas, Biggie. Those are my type of rappers, especially, being East Coast and most of them being in the New York area. It hit me a little bit harder. We thought he had died last night, but he officially, had died today. Any quick thoughts and memories of one of the best rappers who unfortunately was his own biggest, victim, unfortunately, with the overdosing, and unfortunately succumbed, earlier today.
Yeah, there's a great article in Rolling Stone that for you guys to check out. And I was trying to read over some of it, but yeah. I grew up. I was born in the Bronx, lived there for 12 years, and I lived in Yonkers until I was 19, and moved further upstate.
He was from Mount Vernon.
So he grew up in Yonkers on School Street. Mm-hmm. And School Street is actually down the street from where I live. So it wasn't the best area. So I stayed in my little street that was pretty safe, and I did not go down School Street too often, not at night anyway. And so being in Yonkers at that point, in the 90s or whatever, he was such a local hero to people in the neighborhood, with what he did as a rapper. And Rolling Stone had a good line. They said he was a rapper who blended aggressive menace with emotional sincerity, and you really would see that throughout throughout his albums. Yeah, I thought he was great. I thought he was tremendous. He's a guy who I really, really enjoyed listening to. I still listen to him now. say like all-time best rappers or whatever. I don't know where all that stuff is, but I would say he's absolutely one of my favorite guys. Back in the day, so in the mid to late, mostly late 90s is when like the internet was a big thing. Everyone had AOL profiles, and so you'd put your name and you put where you're from. Like if you were from Yonkers, you put Home of the Brave, because that's what DMX was referring to when he talked about where he was from. And he also put Shine in the name of Yonkers, which, was, there's a lot of rough areas in Yonkers. And where he was from was rough. Where I was from was rough. And where we were from.
Yeah.
So, he put Shine on the name of Yonkers, where it was kind of like people didn't know anything about Yonkers. So and then he's been in these movies. I don't think he was a great actor, but God bless him, he was in these movies. But then, he had a lot of demons, and you knew he had a lot of demons by his albums. Sometimes you hear guys who are rappers and you're like, this guy's whatever, a fake or a this or whatever. He's a jobber. Like he's never done any of this. That's all bullshit or whatever. And I'm not saying he's out there. He had this one song ATF or whatever. Like that's a story. But some of his stuff about kind of who he was as a person, where he was bridging this like love of God and his family to like being this like not great person all the time. I think that was real. And he had demons, and he talked about demons in his music. And those demons, he succumbed to those demons, unfortunately, today. Had a lot of drug problems, was in jail. I think he was in rehab like a ton of times. And he never got it together with that part of his life. I mean, 50 years old, So definitely RIP DMX. I hope this is a lesson for people about drugs and alcohol. And, for instance, for me, I have a lot of, addiction runs in my family. So I try to take a month off of drinking for a year. And that happens to be this month, the nicest month we've had in forever. Right. And so addiction is a really, really powerful thing. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, or who you are, or what skin color you are. Once drugs hit you and that addiction hits you, it can be very, very hard to shake. So RIP to DMX, and his music will be there forever. It will stand the test of time.
Well, Jay, I usually say, the final word is yours, but I don't know if you could have said any better than that. Everybody enjoy WrestleMania, have loved ones in your heart. And, if you can learn from anything, DMX was a great rapper, but like everyone else, we have problems. And if you have a problem, feel free to go out there and let people know, and, get help. Because you know what? We lose way too many people way too soon. We almost, lost Dr. Dre earlier this year. He's doing better, but we did lose DMX. So Jay, as always, the final word is yours.
I think we're done here. See ya.